And I Quote is bringing you expert-to-expert advice and insights. Our thought-provoking conversations with insurance industry professionals will inspire and educate our listeners on the latest trends and hot topics.
Let's move our industry forward together. The And I Quote podcast is brought to you by Coterie Insurance. Coterie is simplifying the way agents work with small business.
Now let's get started.
Welcome to another episode of And I Quote. Today I have Megan Kuczynski from InsureTech Insights. She's the president of a big organization that's helping drive change and innovation in our industry. Welcome to the podcast, Megan. Great to have you today.
Thanks, Bobbie, and I'm honored to be here with you, and it's just great to catch up.
Yes. So let's dive in. First question is kind of a big one, but how does it feel to kind of be at the forefront of an industry where everyone seems to be convinced that, tech needs to revolutionize insurance, like it's, the second coming of sliced bread? How does that feel?
Well, I have to say that's a great analogy. I was in Wofford, South Carolina. All last week I was moving my older son back home from college for the summer. And someone asked me, another parent, like, what do you do for a living? And it's hard to explain. I say my background is business to business media and in global events, but it's truly fascinating to be at this nexus of transformation within the insurance industry. And so rather than, get too technical with them, I kind of gave some examples like, hey, I could send a drone to check out some property damage that'll help expedite a claim. I more gave kind of these cutting, and they just said, you're on the cutting edge. That's so interesting. And I just said, well, insurance is not boring anymore. That's for sure. So it's endlessly fascinating. It's going at a rapid fire pace, especially when you consider Gen AI on its applications across life and health and P&C. So it's endlessly fascinating, and I know it's frustrating too for a lot of people because there is a sense that some traditional carriers are just a little slow to adapt.
Yeah. Well, I've lived both lives, right? I've lived in the legacy carrier world. I should stop using that word legacy, in the traditional carrier world, and then also in the Insurtech space for the last 2 years. And I will tell you, like, I'm 20 years in the industry. The last 2 years I felt like 10 based on how fast we move as an organization versus the first 18. So I feel like I've aged 10 years very quickly, but it's definitely like sprinting on a treadmill versus walking at a leisurely pace.
Yeah. I mean, you have both perspectives, and I mean, the fact that you flagged legacy as well, I think, as traditional carriers do adapt more on the technology standpoint, maybe that word will just become moot.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Let's hope. I'm going to try to do my best. Self-awareness. So Megan, with all of the buzzwords flying around InsureTech, which ones do you think has like the most legs on it? And which one do you hear the most and secretly roll your eyes at?
Can you repeat the second half of the question?
Which one do you hear the most and secretly roll your eyes at? Because you really don't think it has a lot of substance.
That's a great question. I would say, Gen AI, pro and con.
Yeah.
Right? I think when we actually see unbelievable case studies of lowering costs, improving efficiencies, that is really exciting. But it's just one of those like Gen AI.
Yeah.
It's where the cool kids are playing, right? So I think when we actually see and deconstruct those use cases that are demonstrating, in these, it's still early in the adoption phase. That's very exciting.
I agree. I feel like it's maybe almost 7-8 years ago where API was kind of the big buzzword. And now finally it has legs within the industry, and there's a lot of pipes that are connected via API.
Yeah.
So it takes time for that adoption to happen. And I think, we dream big, right out of the gate. And so Gen AI has a lot of really big potential use cases, but I think just starting simple within our industry is going to be like what pushes us forward to the point where we look back in 7 or 8 years again and said, remember when Gen AI was a buzzword? And now it's just kind of a part of the way we do business.
I totally agree. Yeah.
So
AI is a great example.
yeah. Well, and we talked about embedded a few years back too, and that kind of sort of got some legs, and then the economy shifted and things kind of went backwards on that.
Yeah.
I am seeing a little bit of that come to fruition again and start to kind of get a little bit of traction. Have you seen the same, Megan?
For embedded?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, from a consumer standpoint, it's that instant gratification.
Yeah.
I bought this thing and then I'm just going to add, and it doesn't seem like a lot of money, but for peace of mind, it's sort of that, I don't want to call it an impulse buy, but it's sort of, I'm buying already, I'll just tack this on.
Yeah.
So I think from a broad I definitely think that is becoming just part of an ubiquitous part of consumer spending.
Yeah, I agree. And easier to do so on in my Target cart when they ask if I want to add insurance to the hair dryer I just bought. That's a little bit easier than a more complex commercial lines risk that's buying, a financial services product and wants to add insurance. It gets a little bit more dicey on do I have the coverages that I need?
Definitely.
So speaking of consumer buying habits and customer experiences, in the InsureTech world, you hear a lot of companies, they often say we have a seamless customer experience, and it's digital, and Coterie's working on some of that ourselves, right? We have a highly digital first experience. Do you think that there's a limit to how seamless things can actually be before customers start missing the good old relationship touch within the insurance buying process?
That's a great question, and I actually put it to the test recently. So you might have heard of Ethos, the life insurance aggregator, so to speak, or their buzzword is $2 million policy in 2 minutes. And, I like to test things out. So I'm like, I'm just going to try this, I'm looking at doing some supplemental, and I did it. And I think I'm an easy case because I have a pretty clean medical record. I think the only time I've been hospitalized was to give birth twice. So I know I'm kind of probably an easy case for them, but I filled out, it's all online. I did everything pretty quickly. And then and I really appreciated it. They had an agent call me to do the verification.
Yeah.
And, just making sure everything that I put forth digitally was correct and accurate and truthful. And she was amazing. I had a bunch of questions for her and she answered them, and she just said, I'll be your person, if you have any other questions. So I think that's a great combination of, something that happened in rapid fire digitally, astonishingly so. And then I had a human in the loop and the human touch, and just, it's sort of like a sensitive thing to buy life insurance, so I appreciated that. So I would point to that as a good example.
Yeah. And I mean, if you compare that life insurance buying experience to Coterie, our median buying time is 57 seconds.
Wow.
So it's pretty fast. It's micro commercial, right? But speaking of, AI, and, even predictive modeling, we're starting to learn which transactions and touch points we should enter a human into and which ones should be digital. And so the more data that we get on that, the smarter we'll be on transacting in the right way for that consumer. So it's getting pretty fun and exciting to be a part of that journey.
Yeah.
But I'm of the belief, and maybe I'm slightly old school, that there are certain points within a transaction that people really want to talk to someone, especially when it's on a complex product like insurance.
I totally agree. Think about an auto accident, a fender bender. Okay, I'll file the claim digitally, just quick, get it off my plate. But let's say it was a more serious accident. You know what I mean? I want to talk to a human. If I was rear-ended or, or something where I was rattled or if I had children in the car, it's just, I think it's determining when to bring that human in, because I think that's invaluable in those cases.
I agree. I'm going to have you pull out your crystal ball.
Okay.
And just what do you think is going to be the next big disruptive technology after Gen AI? Because we're going to talk about this for all of this year, maybe into next year. But when we get to 2026, what's going to be the big topic of conversation at InsureTech Insights?
And we're covering it a little bit. I'll say two, and one is not so disruptive, but I think it's important. And again, this is on my mind because I'm writing a lot about it. And we chatted before we started the podcast about InsureTech Insights last year with the Canadian wildfires and all that cloudy, zombie apocalyptic orange haze in the sky. Who would have thought? There was an earthquake in New York City. Who would have thought? Flooding around the world is on the rise. Hurricanes are becoming more severe because of the rising temperatures in the oceans. There's no slowing down the climate crisis. I think everyone's doing what they can to assuage the risk. But I think what's really exciting is technology is stepping up for climate. Just talk about data and analytics and everything. I think there is going to be it's the next great wave of innovation is climate resilience. And it's fascinating because it touches everyone. And there's going to be a great need for intersectional partnerships. We think about it, it's an issue for insurers, of course, because of the risk. But now I'm seeing, insurers working together with solutions providers, working together with emergency response, CTOs of cities. I need to talk to all these people because everybody's affected. So I feel like it's a long runway in terms of a problem that's not going anywhere. And I see a ton of innovation happening in technology, and I think we're just at the beginning. So as that's not a technology specific application like Gen AI, but it's more, we're going to see a lot more, AI will have a big part of it as well.
Yeah.
There was, I think it's the University of San Diego that they just took 100, maybe 1,600, I think is the number, of cameras to the hottest wildfire risk areas in California. And they're capturing data every second now, which AI is going to analyze to tell them where they can predict and prevent the greatest risk areas. So it's fascinating.
Yeah. It is super fascinating. Well, and there's so many data points that go into each weather event, right? Like with wildfire, there's temperature, there's how much rainfall was there, which way is the wind blowing today, how strong is the wind. I feel like we've come a long way in our industry on modeling hurricanes, and we're getting better at being able to predict, what those paths are going to be, who needs to evacuate.
Right.
I mean, what do you think about? I was thinking about this over the weekend. What do you think about Parametrics playing a bigger role in helping us solve for kind of like the risk mitigation of climate change?
Yeah,
or risk transfer, I guess.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, Parametrics a few years ago was a little ahead of its time.
Yeah.
But I feel like now, that's going to be a part of this next great wave of innovation and risk mitigation. So I feel like it was kind of a buzzword maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, but I feel, and some things are a little ahead of their time, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's fascinating to study that for sure. Yeah.
Well, our industry has a tendency just to have a vision. We know what's coming, but it takes a while for us to get there. So that could be like the next API is Parametrics. We're actually ingraining that into the risk transfer process, especially around property insurance.
Totally agree. And then, just as we get better with modeling, the data, the analytics, then, the the whole life and health side of the fence is affected by it. And, look at what we could do from, if we do appropriately risk mitigate, saving lives, getting claims processed faster. It's really an ecosystem play in my view.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The other thing, I would just one more thing, because I've been studying this a lot and writing about it. Predict and prevent as it relates to life and health. We're really excited at this year's InsureTech Insights to have Grail. They'll be one of the keynoters, and they can detect 50 different markers for cancer with one blood draw.
Oh, wow.
And so, no, it's really fascinating. And so they can, if you show the markers of, and again, the average oncologist or even a GP would test for the big five: prostate, breast, and so forth. But there's all kinds of orphan malignancies that can go into those 50 different markers. And, life insurers are paying attention to that. So they announced a major partnership with Munich Re in 2022. And then since then, Grail has partnered with John Hancock, who's offering the test through their life insurance policies. Mass Mutual, we have them on a keynote with Joshua Offman is the president of Grail, Mark Gugary, the CEO of Munich Re Life and Health, and Sears Merritt from Mass Mutual. So they'll be talking about those partnerships. So, in the end game, we want to save lives, by catching the cancer early when it can be cured. And then the commercial side, it just extends the life of the policyholder. So to me, it's those sorts of things are really fascinating to watch and to track.
Well, just the intersection of science and insurance is fun.
Yeah.
Which is happening in the life and health space and has been for a long time. And I think we're at the point, to your earlier points, Megan, that the science behind climate and weather is going to have a greater intersection with insurance. And we get a lot deeper than it ever has been.
Totally agree. Agree.
Well, I know we were also chatting before we got started that I cannot make it to InsureTech Insights this year. I'm so bummed. I have some family commitments. My daughter's hopefully going to be playing in state softball, but I want to just make sure to, give our audience a little bit of what they can expect if they're attending, or if they still want to sign up. Are there still seats available? And then just let me know everything I'm going to miss out on, so I can that and live vicariously through you guys in a couple of weeks.
That's amazing, and I totally understand, but we're going to miss you, Bobbie. So, but we'll be, you can follow along. We'll be chronicling through social media and everything. So we're going to have over 5,000 attendees, possibly more. Attendance is tracking really well. And it's a combination of insurance carriers, solutions providers, startups, investors, a lot of us new association partners as well. So we've doubled the amount of content that we're offering in life and health. We're in New York. We're New York Life, MetLife, they're all there. So we're really expanding those content offerings. And then we're also expanding the distribution content offerings as well. We just partnered with the Council of Agents and Brokers, and you'll just see a lot more of that type of programming. A hallmark of InsureTech Insights, as you know, is InsureTech Week New York. So we'll have over 50 curated side events, and they're really fun and casual, whether it be a fun run through Central Park, we're doing with Bulltech this year, yoga, rooftop cocktails, all kinds of fun events that lead up to the big event, which is amazing. One thing I'm super excited about, I mentioned the Grail keynote. I'll be moderating that. And then I curated a new keynote feature called Women in Leadership Congress. And this one, I'm calling The Path to the C-Suite. So we have Sabrina Hart, who is the president and CEO of Munich Re Specialty on this panel. We have Casey Kempton, who's the new president of Nationwide Personal Lines. We have our favorite serial entrepreneur who you know well, Marco Giles, who's also on the panel. And I'll be moderating that. And we'll just, we had a prep call yesterday, really fascinating, women. And I think this will be aspirational, but they'll definitely talk about like, major events that were pivotal in their path to the C-suite, how they have navigated work-life balance, which you just shared, and then just advice. I think it's going to be a lot of great wisdom shared to the next generation of female leaders. Men and women are all invited. It's not a women-only event, so we encourage everyone to attend. And just a lot of great programming, an electrifying expo hall. We have something we call the tech stage, which is sold out. It's just the most blockbuster new technologies demonstrated right on the expo hall. And all of our main stage, we're building the main stage in the expo hall this year. So it's just a really electrifying expo hall and a lot of experiential networking opportunities around it.
Oh, I'm so bummed I'm going to miss it, especially like the fun networking events, those like side curated events. I think there's just so much power in building our network. Through those moments and those, smaller events with the smaller groups of folks. I hope you guys have fantastic weather. I hope the sun is shining through no smoke from wildfires this year. Yes. And I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. You and the team always put on a great event.
Thank you. And I just want to give kudos to the team in London. They are so passionate about this product, content driven, really wanting to deliver an amazing experience for everyone.